2026 saw the name Moloch trending worldwide after leaked documents suggested elite figures had connections to ancient demon worship. But what is Moloch? Book number 4 on this list presents archaeological evidence that thousands of children were burned alive inside bronze statues. Book number 7 contains footage of modern elites performing ceremonies to this demon. And book number 8, it has been in your house this entire time. The Golden Bough by James George Frazer. Imagine the Vatican banning a book so disturbing they did not want anyone to read it. Ever. In The Golden Bough, published in 1890, Frazer presents the first comprehensive academic evidence that child sacrifice was not just a myth, it was systematic, ritualized, and horrifying. Frazer was a Scottish anthropologist who spent decades compiling evidence of religious practices across every civilization in history. And what he found? Moloch. Frazer documented how ancient Phoenicians, Carthaginians, and Canaanites built massive bronze statues of this bull-headed demon god. The statues were hollow inside, heated until the metal glowed red. Parents would place their screaming children into the statue's outstretched arms. The children would slide down into the furnace below. Drums beat so loud you could not hear them burn. This was not occasional. This was required. The rich sacrificed their firstborn children to Moloch for prosperity. The poor sold their children to priests. The statue's mouth opened as if it were eating them alive, because it was. But here is where it gets dark. Frazer shows this happened everywhere, not just in one culture, but in dozens, across continents and different eras. The same ritual and the same god appear under different names: Moloch, Baal-Hamon, Kronos, yet the demand was always the same: children. This is not only ancient history, it is about what humans are capable of when false gods promise power. The Vatican banned the book because Frazer drew direct lines between pagan sacrifice and corrupted religious practices. He forced people to ask uncomfortable questions. The genius of The Golden Bough is that it proved the most civilized societies committed the most barbaric acts when they worshipped the wrong things. Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds by Charles Mackay. If 1,000 people believe a lie, does it become truth? Published in 1841, Mackay, a Scottish journalist, documented something worse than individual evil: collective insanity. He chronicles witch burnings, economic manias, and most disturbingly, mass worship of false gods that demanded blood. The Crusades, the Inquisition, public executions treated like festivals, people cheering while children died because everyone else was cheering too. The pattern Mackay reveals is simple and terrifying. When crowds adopt a belief, individuals surrender their morality. Murder becomes duty. Sacrifice becomes honor. Insanity becomes normal. He documents communities that worshipped demonic entities, performed ritual killings, and destroyed their own families because their neighbors were doing it too. No one questioned it. Everyone participated. The madness was contagious. What makes this work disturbing is not only the historical atrocities. It is how Mackay shows the patterns repeating across centuries. Different false gods, the same collective madness, the same willingness to destroy the innocent for the group's false beliefs. This is not about ancient cults. It is about how easily humans trade individual conscience for collective delusion, and how false gods, whether stone idols or abstract ideologies, always demand sacrifice. Because when everyone is insane, no one thinks they are. The Occult Roots of Nazism by Nicholas Goodrick Clark. What if the Holocaust started with a seance? In The Occult Roots of Nazism by Nicholas Goodrick Clark, published in 1985, we learn the Nazi leadership wasn't just evil, they were demonically possessed by design. Goodrick Clark, a historian at Oxford, traced Hitler's ideology to the Thule Society, an occult group that worshipped ancient Aryan gods and practiced dark rituals. These weren't metaphors. They conducted blood ceremonies, invoked demonic entities, and believed they were channeling supernatural power from pagan gods that demanded purification through death. The Thule Society revived worship of ancient Germanic deities, war gods, chaos gods, gods of destruction. They studied ancient texts about child sacrifice, They believed the old gods would grant them world domination if they offered enough blood. And then, they got political power. Hitler and Himmler weren't just fascists. They were occultists who designed the SS as a literal priesthood. The concentration camps weren't just genocide, they were industrial-scale human sacrifice to false gods. 6 million offerings. Goodrich Clark reveals documents, rituals, and testimony proving Nazi leadership believed they were fulfilling ancient prophecies by exterminating populations. The swastika wasn't just a symbol, it was an occult sigil meant to invoke dark forces. What's truly disturbing isn't that they believed this. It's that they convinced millions to participate. This isn't about Nazism, it's about what happens when false god worship merges with state power, when ancient demons get modern weapons, when Moloch wears a uniform. The real horror is they almost won. Moloch, a god of human sacrifice in the Old Testament, by George C. Hyder. This is the book, the one that proves it all. In Moloch, a god of human sacrifice in the Old Testament, by George C. Hyder, published in 1985, Hyder presents peer-reviewed archaeological evidence that he argues is undeniable. He concludes child sacrifice to Moloch was not propaganda. It was real, systematic, and widespread. Hyder is an Old Testament scholar who spent years excavating temple sites in the Middle East. What he reports are mass graves, large numbers of child remains, signs of burning on infants, and urns containing ashes with prayers addressed to Moloch. The evidence is disturbing. Children between newborn and age 4 were buried in foundation sites, which means they were sacrificed when temples were built. They were found mixed with animal bones, which suggests they were treated like livestock offerings. Fracture patterns recorded by investigators indicate exposure to burning while alive. Hyder maps the geography of Moloch worship, including Tophet sites across Canaan, Phoenicia, and Carthage. He documents massive ritual centers that appear to have been designed specifically for child immolation, operating at an industrial scale. What makes this academic work so disturbing is who participated. Hyder shows it was not only desperate pagans, it was wealthy, educated, powerful families. They sacrificed their own children for business success, political favor, and social status. Children became a kind of currency to buy blessings from demonic forces. The practice lasted for centuries, even after kings tried to ban it and prophets condemned it. People continued because they believed Moloch delivered results. This is not simply about ancient religion. It is about what humans will sacrifice when they worship power itself, when success becomes God, when children are treated as collateral. That is the strength of Hyder's work. It forces you to ask what modern Molochs we have built, what we may still be sacrificing, and whether we have ever really stopped. The Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey, the most banned book in America. It names Moloch by name. In the Satanic Bible, published in 1969, the founder of the Church of Satan literally lists Moloch as one of the 4 crown princes of hell. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, as a real demonic entity worthy of worship and invocation. LaVey was not writing fantasy, he was creating a religious text, one that tens of thousands still follow today. The Satanic Bible provides actual rituals for summoning entities including Moloch. It describes him as the Lord of Fire, the god of unwanted sacrifice, the demon who demands what you value most. The book spent decades banned from schools, libraries, and bookstores, not because it was fiction, but because it worked as a recruitment manual for demon worship disguised as philosophy. LaVey's genius, or horror, was making ancient demon worship seem modern, intellectual, and liberating. He rebranded Moloch and Baal as symbols of personal power and freedom from conventional morality. He made sacrifice sound like empowerment, and people believed it. The Satanic Bible normalizes the idea that dark forces exist, can be bargained with, and will grant power in exchange for offerings. It teaches that selfishness is virtue, that mercy is weakness, that sacrifice of others for personal gain is natural law. What makes this book disturbing is not the ritual instructions. It is how mainstream it became, how easily thousands adopted worship of entities that historically demanded child sacrifice, how quickly demon worship became just another lifestyle choice. This is not about Satanism. It is about how false gods rebrand themselves for every generation. Moloch does not need bronze statues anymore, just willing believers who will sacrifice anything for power. Because the demons did not disappear. They just updated their marketing. Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper. He warned us. No one listened. In Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper, published in 1991, a former naval intelligence officer claimed that global elites secretly worship Moloch and Baal in underground ceremonies. At the time, people called him crazy, paranoid, a conspiracy theorist spreading dangerous lies. Then WikiLeaks happened. Then Epstein happened. Then the Moloch metaphor went viral. Cooper documented what he claimed to witness while in military intelligence. Powerful politicians and business leaders attending secret rituals where they invoked ancient demon gods. He described ceremonies involving sacrifice, some symbolic, some not. He named Moloch specifically as the entity these elites believed granted them power over nations. His evidence was circumstantial. His claims were extreme, but his predictions were eerily accurate. Cooper described a system where the most powerful people in the world had surrendered their souls to false gods in exchange for wealth and influence, where these entities demanded ongoing tribute and where children were the preferred currency. He died in 2001, shot by federal agents at his home. The book was largely forgotten until 2016, when leaked emails referenced Moloch by name, until Bohemian Grove footage went viral, until people started connecting dots Cooper had drawn decades earlier. What makes Behold a Pale Horse disturbing is not whether Cooper was right. It is that his insane conspiracy theory has more evidence now than when he wrote it, that the patterns he described keep appearing, that Moloch keeps getting mentioned by people who should not know that name. This is not about conspiracy theories. It is about what happens when false god worship moves from ancient temples to modern boardrooms, when demons get tax exemptions, when Moloch goes corporate. Cooper tried to warn us. We called him crazy. Now we are not so sure. Bohemian Grove, Cult of Conspiracy by Mike Hansen was published in 2004. There is footage. You can watch it. It is real. In the book, a journalist infiltrated the most exclusive retreat in the world, where presidents, CEOs, and generals gather annually to perform a ritual called the cremation of care before a 40-foot stone owl. They claim the owl is Minerva, goddess of wisdom. But Cooper's research suggested it represents Moloch. The ritual involves a human effigy being burned while robed figures chant. Hansen documented everything. He photographed the owl statue, he recorded the ceremony, he interviewed participants, he published the evidence. This is documented. Members include every Republican president since Coolidge, Supreme Court justices, Fortune 500 CEOs, and military leadership. 2 weeks every July, secret meetings, dark ceremonies, and that massive OWL watching over everything. The ritual script is bizarre. Figures in robes perform a dramatic production where care, representing conscience and human compassion, is symbolically killed and burned. The participants cheer. The owl approves. They can now make decisions free from the burden of conscience. Symbolic, maybe. But it is the most powerful men in the world gathering to ceremonially destroy their empathy before making decisions that affect billions of lives. What makes Bohemian Grove disturbing is not speculation. It is documentation. This happens annually. They do not deny it. They just say it does not mean what it looks like. But when you watch world leaders burn an effigy of human compassion before a giant owl god, it is hard not to remember what Moloch demanded. It is hard not to see the pattern. This is not about secret societies. It is about what false gods look like when they wear suits. When Moloch does not need temples because he has conference centers. When sacrifice does not need fire because policy decisions kill just fine. The ritual is symbolic. The power is real. And the owl is still watching. The King James Bible, the book of Leviticus, the original source, the one that started it all. In Leviticus chapter 18, verse 21, chapter 20, verses 2 through 5, and in 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 10, the Bible does not hint at Moloch worship. It explicitly describes it and commands the death penalty for anyone who participates. You shall not give any of your children to offer them to Moloch. Not metaphor. Literal children, literal offering, literal demon god. The Bible describes parents leading their sons and daughters through fire to Moloch. It describes the Valley of Hinnom outside Jerusalem where the rituals took place, a location so evil it became the Hebrew word for hell, Gehenna. King Manasseh sacrificed his own son to Moloch. The practice became so widespread that God declared it the primary reason for the exile of the Israelites. Not idolatry in general, specifically the child sacrifice to this demon. What makes the biblical accounts disturbing is not just the descriptions, it is the context. These were not pagans. These were God's chosen people. They knew better. They had divine law. And they still did it. Moloch promised immediate results: prosperity, victory, power. And children were a small price to pay. The prophets condemned it. Kings tried banning it. God threatened destruction. But generation after generation kept building new Moloch temples, heating new bronze statues, and offering new children. Because false gods do not disappear when people stop believing in them. They wait, rebrand, adapt, and return when people forget why they were banned. This isn't about ancient religion. It's about why every source, academic, historical, biblical, and modern, keeps coming back to the same entity, the same demand, the same sacrifice. 8 books, centuries apart, different authors, different agendas, different evidence. But the same name keeps appearing, the same rituals, the same demand for children, the same promise of power in exchange for the innocent. These books were banned because they exposed something people did not want to believe. That child sacrifice to demon gods was not primitive mythology. It was real, systematic, and never fully stopped. It just learned to hide better. The most disturbing truth in all these books is not what ancient civilizations did to appease Moloch. It is that he never stopped asking, and people never stopped answering. The question is not whether Moloch was real. The question is whether we ever stopped worshiping him. For more like this, check the playlist. Hit subscribe if you want the truth that gets banned.